Hi, my name's Amanda and I'm a pharmacist. This is quiz number 2 for my top 200 drugs flashcards. And if you find this video useful, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share it with others who may find it helpful too. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Number 1. The generic name for Lipitor is A. Simvastatin, B. Atorvastatin, C. Lovastatin, or D. Ezetimibe. And the answer is B. Atorvastatin is the generic name for Lipitor. Simvastatin is the generic name for Zocor. Lovastatin is the generic name for Mevacor or Altoprev. And all three of those are HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors for high cholesterol. Ezetimibe is the generic name for Zetia. That's also a medication for high cholesterol. Number 2. Levothyroxine is the generic name for A. Synthroid, B. Levaquin, C. Cytomel, or D. Lotensin. And the answer is A. Synthroid. Levothyroxine is the generic name for Synthroid, which is a synthetic T4 thyroid hormone. Levaquin is the brand name for levofloxacin. That's a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Cytomel is the brand name for liothyronine. That's a synthetic T3 thyroid hormone. And Lotensin is the brand name for benazepril. That's an ACE inhibitor for high blood pressure. Number 3. The generic name for Prevnavil is A. Lisinopril, B. Enalapril, C. Pravastatin, or D. Fluoxetine. And the answer is A. Lisinopril is the generic name for Prevnavil. It's also the generic name for Zestril as well. Enalapril is the generic name for Vasotec, and both of those are ACE inhibitors for high blood pressure, and you can tell that by the ending of the pril suffix. Pravastatin is the generic name for Pravachol. That's a statin medication for high cholesterol. And fluoxetine is the generic name for Prozac. That's an SSRI antidepressant. Number 4. Glucophage is a medication for A. Gout, B. Hypertension, C. Diabetes, or D. Cholesterol. And the answer is C. Diabetes. Glucophage is a medication for diabetes, and the generic name is metformin. It's in the biguanide class. Number 5. True or false? Norvasc, or generic name amlodipine, is a beta blocker for high blood pressure. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Norvasc, or amlodipine, is a calcium channel blocker for high blood pressure. And you can tell that it's a dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker because it ends in the suffix -ipine, I-P-I-N-E. Number 6. The generic name of Lopressor is A. Atenolol, B. Metoprolol, C. Nebivolol, or D. Carvedilol. And the answer is B. Metoprolol is the generic name of Lopressor. Topril XL is also a brand name for metoprolol, but an extended release version. Atenolol is the generic name for Tenormin. Nebivolol is the generic name for Bistolic, and Carvedilol is the generic name for Coreg. And all of these medications are beta blockers used for high blood pressure. You can tell by the LOL suffix ending. Number 7. Proventil is a brand name for A. Albuterol, B. Fluticasone and salmeterol, C. Budesonide, or D. Ipratropium with albuterol. And the answer is A. Albuterol. Proventil is a brand name for albuterol, which it's a beta-2 bronchodilator for asthma and other lung diseases. Advair is the brand name for fluticasone with salmeterol. That's a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator combination. Pulmicort is the brand name for budesonide, which is an inhaled steroid. And Duoneb or Combivent are brand names for ipratropium with albuterol. That's an anticholinergic and beta-2 bronchodilator combination. And all these are inhaled products that are for breathing with asthma and other lung disease. Number 8. Omeprazole is a medication for A. Fungal infections, B. GERD, C. Diabetes, or D. BPH. And the answer is B. GERD. Omeprazole is a medication for GERD. And that stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. And its brand name is Prilosec. Number 9. True or false? Losartan is an ARB for high blood pressure. A. True or B. False? And the answer is A. True. Losartan is an ARB for high blood pressure. And you can know this with the suffix of losartan. Sartan is the suffix that the ARBs generally end in. And its brand name is Cozar. Number 10. The generic name for Zocor is A. Atorvastatin, B. Simvastatin, C. Rosuvastatin, or D. Lovastatin. And the answer is B. Simvastatin is the generic name for Zocor. Atorvastatin is the generic name for Lipitor. Rosuvastatin is the generic name for Crestor. And Lovastatin is the generic name for Mevacor or Altoprev. And all of these medications are statin drugs, which are HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors for high cholesterol. Number 11. Gabapentin is a medication for A. Seizures, B. Nerve pain, C. Both A and B, or D. Neither A or B. And the answer is C. Both A and B. Gabapentin is a medication for seizures and nerve pain, and its brand name is Neurontin. Number 12. The brand name for hydrocodone with APAP is A. Percocet, B. Roxicodone, C. Norco, or D. Ultracet. And the answer is C. Norco. Norco is the brand name for hydrocodone with APAP, and APAP is just an abbreviation for acetaminophen. Percocet is the brand name for oxycodone with acetaminophen. Roxicodone is the brand name for just oxycodone. Ultracet is the brand name for tramadol with acetaminophen. And I have a note here, the oxycodone and hydrocodone products are a DEA Schedule 2, and the tramadol products are a DEA Schedule 4. Number 13. Which of the following is a thiazide diuretic? A. Furosemide, B. HCTZ, C. Lisinopril, or D. Metoprolol. And the answer is B. HCTZ, or hydrochlorothiazide, that's what that stands for, is a thiazide diuretic. Its brand name is Microzide. Furosemide is a loop diuretic. Lisinopril is an ACE inhibitor, and you can know that with the pril suffix. And metoprolol is a beta blocker, and you can know that with the LOL suffix. Number 14. What is the brand name of sertraline? A. Lexapro, B. Prozac, C. Zoloft, or D. Celexa? And the answer is C. Zoloft is the brand name for sertraline. Lexapro is the brand name for S-citalopram. Prozac is the brand name for fluoxetine. And Celexa is the brand name for citalopram. And all of these medications are SSRI antidepressants. Number 15. The generic name of Singulair is A. Loratadine, B. Diphenhydramine, C. Meloxicam, or D. Montelukast. And the answer is D. Montelukast is the generic name of Singulair. It's a leukotriene inhibitor for asthma and allergies. Loratadine is the generic name for Claritin. That's an antihistamine for allergies. Diphenhydramine is the generic name for Benadryl, and that is an antihistamine as well. And Meloxicam is the generic name for Mobic. That's an NSAID for pain and inflammation. Number 16. Fluticasone NS is a medication for A. Asthma, B. Allergies, C. Chest congestion, or D. Headache. And the answer is B, allergies. Fluticasone NS stands for nasal spray, is a medication for allergies, and its brand name is Flonase. Number 17, amoxicillin is an A, antibiotic, B, antiviral, C, antifungal, or D, anticoagulant. And the answer is A, antibiotic. Amoxicillin is an antibiotic. That means it's for bacterial infections, and its brand name is Amoxil. An antiviral means it's for a viral infection. Antifungal means it would be for a fungal infection, and anticoagulant is a name for a blood thinner. So amoxicillin is an antibiotic, meaning it is for bacterial infections. Number 18. What is the brand name of furosemide? A, Maxide, B, Microzide, C, Lasix, or D, Aldactone? And the answer is C, Lasix. Lasix is the brand name of furosemide. It's a loop diuretic for swelling. Maxide is the brand name for triamterene with HCTZ. Microzide is the brand name for HCTZ or hydrocortisone. Aldactone is the brand name for spironolactone, and all of these medications are diuretics. Number 19, true or false? Pantoprazole is the generic name for Protonix. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Pantoprazole is the generic name for Protonix, and it's a medication for a PPI, proton pump inhibitor, for heartburn and GERD. Number 20. The generic name of Tylenol is A, Ibuprofen, B, naproxen, C, aspirin, or D, acetaminophen. And the answer is D. Acetaminophen is the generic name of Tylenol. Ibuprofen is the generic name of Motrin. Naproxen is a generic name for naproxen, and aspirin is a generic name for Ecotrin. Number 21. Deltazone is the brand name for A, Fluticasone, B, prednisone, C, prednisolone, or D, progesterone. And the answer is B, prednisone. Deltazone is the brand name for prednisone. Flonase is a brand name for fluticasone. Prelone is a brand name for prednisolone. And those three medications are all steroids used in allergies or inflammation. And Prometrium is a brand name for progesterone, and that is a hormone. Number 22. The brand name for citalopram is A, Lexapro, B, Celexa, C, Elavil, or D, Zoloft. And the answer is B, Celexa. Celexa is the brand name for citalopram, and it's an SSRI antidepressant. Lexapro is the brand name for escitalopram, which is also an SSRI antidepressant. Elavil is the brand name for amitriptyline, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. And Zoloft is the brand name for sertraline, which is also an SSRI antidepressant. Number 23, true or false? Nortriptyline is the generic name for Prozac. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Fluoxetine is the generic name for Prozac, which is an SSRI antidepressant. Nortriptyline is the generic name for Pamelor, which is a tricyclic antidepressant. Number 24, true or false? Adderall is a DEA Schedule II CNS stimulant for ADHD. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Adderall is a DEA Schedule II, and it is a CNS stimulant for ADHD. So that's true. And the generic name of Adderall is amphetamine with dextroamphetamine. Number 25. Ultram is a pain medication with the generic name of A, Meloxicam, B, Tramadol, C, Ketorolac, or D, Diclofenac. And the answer is B, Tramadol. Ultram is a pain medication with the generic name of Tramadol. Meloxicam is the generic name for Mobic. Ketorolac is the generic name for Toradol. And diclofenac is the generic name for Voltaren. And I have a note here that Tramadol is a DEA Schedule 4. Number 26, true or false? Lantus is a brand name of insulin glargine, a rapid-acting insulin. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Lantus is the brand name of insulin glargine, but it's a long-acting insulin. Number 27. Which of the following are indications for bupropion? A, depression, B, inflammation, C, smoking cessation, or D, both A and C? And the answer is D, both A and C. Bupropion is used for both depression and smoking cessation. In depression, its brand name is Wellbutrin, and for smoking cessation, the brand name it goes by is Zyban, and it is classified as an NDRI antidepressant. Number 28. Ibuprofen is the generic name for A, Tylenol, B, Motrin, C, Mobic, or D, Naproxen? And the answer is B, Motrin. Ibuprofen is the generic name for Motrin. Acetaminophen is the generic name for Tylenol. Meloxicam is the generic name for Mobic. And naproxen is the generic name for Naproxen. Motrin, Mobic, and Naproxen, those are all NSAIDs for pain and inflammation. And Tylenol is a pain medication for mild pain and for fever. Number 29. Crestor is a medication for A, high blood pressure, B, asthma, C, high cholesterol, or D, irregular heartbeat? And the answer is C, high cholesterol. Crestor is a medication for high cholesterol. Its generic name is Rosuvastatin. So you can see by its suffix, it's a statin, which are HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors for high cholesterol. Number 30. The brand name of Pravastatin is A, Lipitor, B, Zocor, C, Crestor, or D, Pravachol? And the answer is D, Pravachol is the brand name of Pravastatin. Lipitor is the brand name of atorvastatin, Zocor is the brand name of simvastatin, and Crestor is the brand name of rosuvastatin. And once again, you can see with the suffix statin, these are all medications for high cholesterol. Number 31. Trazodone is A or an blank. A, antibiotic, B, antidepressant, C, pain medication, or D, diuretic? And the answer is B, antidepressant. Trazodone is an antidepressant, and its brand name is Deseril. Number 32, true or false? Tamsulosin, its brand name is Flomax, is a beta blocker for high blood pressure. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Tamsulosin, or Flomax, is an alpha blocker for BPH, which stands for benign prostatic hypertrophy, which means enlarged prostate. So it's a urinary selective alpha blocker for enlarged prostate symptoms. Number 33, true or false? The brand name of Carvedilol is Coreg. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. The brand name for Carvedilol is Coreg. And it's a beta blocker for high blood pressure and abnormal heartbeat. Number 34. The brand name for Meloxicam is A, Toradol, B, Mobic, C, Dristol, or D, Naproxen? And the answer is B, Mobic. That's the brand name for Meloxicam, and that's an NSAID for pain and inflammation. Toradol is the brand name for Ketorolac, which is also an NSAID for pain and inflammation. Dristol is a brand name for ergocalciferol, which is a vitamin D2 supplement, and naproxen is the brand name for naproxen, which is an NSAID for pain and inflammation. Number 35. The generic name for Celexa is A. S-citalopram, B. citalopram, C. sertraline, or D. celecoxib. And the answer is B. Citalopram is the generic name for Celexa. S-citalopram is the generic name for Lexapro. Sertraline is the generic name for Zoloft, and those three are all SSRI antidepressants. And celecoxib is the generic name for Celebrex, which is a COX-2 selective NSAID for pain and inflammation. Number 36. Duloxetine is a blank antidepressant. A. Tricyclic, B. SSRI, C. SNRI, D. NDRI. And the answer is C. SNRI. Duloxetine is a SNRI antidepressant, and that stands for serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, and its brand name is Cymbalta. SSRI stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. That includes medications like Lexapro, Celexa, Zoloft, Prozac. And NDRI stands for norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitor, and that includes Bupropion, which the brand name is Wellbutrin or Zyban, used for depression or for smoking cessation. Number 37, true or false? The brand name of Xanax is alprazolam, and it's a benzodiazepine for anxiety. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. The generic name of Xanax is alprazolam, and it's a benzodiazepine for anxiety. It's the generic name of Xanax, alprazolam, and it's a DEA Schedule 4. Number 38. Which medication is a potassium supplement? A. Drisdol, B. Colace, C. Fiasol, or D. Chlorcon? And the answer is D. Chlorcon is a potassium supplement. Drisdol is a vitamin D2 supplement, also called ergocalciferol. Colace is generic name is Docusate. It's a stool softener. And Fiasol is a ferrous sulfate or iron supplement. Number 39. The generic name of Plavix, an antiplatelet drug, is A. Clopidogrel, B. Warfarin, C. Apixaban, or D. Rivaroxaban? And the answer is A. Clopidogrel is the generic name of Plavix, which is an antiplatelet drug. Warfarin is the generic name for Coumadin, which is a vitamin K antagonist blood thinner. Apixaban is the generic name for Eliquis, which is a factor Xa inhibitor blood thinner. And Rivaroxaban is the generic name for Xarelto, which is also a direct factor Xa inhibitor blood thinner. Number 40. Ecotrin is A or an A. Antihistamine, B. Beta blocker, C. Diuretic, or D. Antiplatelet? And the answer is D. Antiplatelet. Ecotrin is an antiplatelet. Its generic name is aspirin. It's also a pain medication and fever reducer at higher doses. Number 41. True or false? Zantac is a PPI for heartburn. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Zantac, its generic name is ranitidine, is a H2 blocker for heartburn. It's not a PPI, it's an H2 blocker. Number 42. The brand name for Atenolol is A. Lopressor, B. Tenormin, C. Coreg, or D. Bistolic? And the answer is B. Tenormin is the brand name for Atenolol. Lopressor is a brand name for Metoprolol. Coreg is a brand name for Carvedilol, and Bistolic is a brand name for Nebivolol. And all of those are beta blockers for high blood pressure, or abnormal heartbeat. You can tell by the LOL suffix ending. Number 43. The generic name for Flexeril is A. Methocarbamol, B. Baclofen, C. Cyclobenzaprine, or D. Mupirocin. And the answer is C. Cyclobenzaprine is the generic name for Flexeril. Methocarbamol is the generic name for Robaxin. Baclofen is the generic name for Leorisal. And those three medications are all muscle relaxants. And Mupirocin is the generic name for Bactroban. That's a topical antibiotic. Number 44. Glipizide is an oral blank medication for diabetes. A. Baguanide, B. Sulfonylurea, C. GLP-1 analog, or D. DPP-4 inhibitor. And the answer is B. Sulfonylurea. Glipizide is an oral sulfonylurea medication for diabetes. These include medications glipizide and also glimepiride, and these are among the oldest medications for diabetes. A baguanide example would be metformin. The GLP-1 analogs, they're injectable and they have the glutide suffix, so that's how you can recognize those. And the DPP-4 inhibitors, they have a gliptin suffix, so that's how you can recognize those. And with glipizide, it's a sulfonylurea and its brand name is Glucotrol. Number 45, true or false? Ritalin is a DEA Schedule 1 stimulant for ADHD. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Ritalin, its generic name is methylphenidate, is a stimulant for ADHD, but it's a DEA Schedule 2. Schedule 1 drugs, that means they have no approved medical use. So you will not see prescriptions for a Schedule 1 drug. Schedule 2 drugs, remember those generally include pain medications and the stimulant ADHD medications. Number 46. The brand name for azithromycin is A. Cleocin, B. Zithromax, C. Keflex, or D. Diflucan. And the answer is B. Zithromax is the brand name for azithromycin. It's a macrolide antibiotic. Cleocin is the brand name for clindamycin. It's a lincosamide antibiotic. Keflex is the brand name for cephalexin. It's a cephalosporin antibiotic. And Diflucan is the brand name for fluconazole. It's an azole antifungal. Number 47. The brand name of clonazepam is A. Restoril, B. Xanax, C. Ambien, or D. Klonopin. And the answer is D. Klonopin. The brand name of clonazepam is Klonopin, and it's a benzodiazepine for anxiety. Restoril is the brand name of temazepam. It's a benzodiazepine for sleep. Xanax is the brand name for alprazolam. It's a benzodiazepine for anxiety. And Ambien is the brand name for Zolpidem. It's a sleep medication. Number 48. What DEA schedule are oxycodone containing products? A. Schedule 1, B. Schedule 2, C. Schedule 3, or D. Schedule 4? And the answer is B. Schedule 2. Oxycodone containing products are a DEA Schedule 2. If you remember, Schedule 2 medications are generally for pain and ADHD. Schedule 1 means there would be no approved medical use. Schedule 3 medications include anabolic steroids, including testosterone, and pain medications with not greater than 90 milligrams of codeine per dosage unit. And Schedule 4 medications generally include those for anxiety and sleep. And for oxycodone, the brand names of the oxycodone containing products include Roxicodone, that's an immediate release oxycodone. OxyContin, that's an extended release oxycodone. And Percocet, that's a oxycodone with acetaminophen. Number 49. What is the generic name for Xalaprim? A. Allopurinol, B. Colchicine, C. Olanzapine, or D. Tizanidine? And the answer is A. Allopurinol is the generic name for Xalaprim, and that's a xanthine oxidase inhibitor for gout. Colchicine is the generic name for Colchris, and that's a tubulin disruptor for gout. Olanzapine is the generic name for Zyprexa, which is an antipsychotic medication. And Tizanidine is the generic name for Zanaflex, which is a muscle relaxant. Number 50. What is the brand name for Venlafaxine? A. Remeron, B. Zoloft, C. Effexor, or D. Cymbalta? And the answer is C. Effexor is the brand name for Venlafaxine. Remeron is the brand name for mirtazapine. Zoloft is the brand name for sertraline, and Cymbalta is the brand name for duloxetine, and all of these are types of antidepressants. Number 51. The brand name for lisinopril with HCTZ is A. Prenavil, B. Zestril, C. Prenzide, or D. Vasotec? And the answer is C. Prenzide is the brand name for lisinopril with HCTZ, and that's an ACE inhibitor and thiazide diuretic combination for high blood pressure. Prenavil is the brand name for lisinopril. Zestril is also a brand name for lisinopril, and Vasotec is a brand name for enalapril, and those are all ACE inhibitors with the pril suffix. And Zesteretic is also a brand name for the lisinopril with HCTZ. Number 52. What type of blood thinner is warfarin? A. Direct factor 10A inhibitor, B. Vitamin K antagonist, C. Antiplatelet, or D. Antithrombin? And the answer is B. Vitamin K antagonist. Warfarin is a vitamin K antagonist blood thinner. The direct factor 10A inhibitors would be apixaban or rivaroxaban, which are Eliquis and Xarelto. The antiplatelets would be clopidogrel or Plavix or aspirin. The antithrombin blood thinners include heparin. And the brand name of warfarin, which was a vitamin K antagonist, is Coumadin. Number 53. The generic name of Inderal is A. Atenolol, B. Metoprolol, C. Nebivolol, or D. Propranolol? And the answer is D. Propranolol is the generic name of Inderal. Atenolol is the generic name of Tenormin. Metoprolol is the generic name of Lopressor or Toprol XL. And Nebivolol is the generic name for Bistolic. All of these are beta blockers, and you can tell by the LOL suffix. Number 54. True or false? Hyzar is an ARB diuretic combination medication for high blood pressure. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is A. True. Hyzar is an ARB and diuretic combination medication for high blood pressure. Hyzar is low sartan, so sartan is an ARB with HCTZ. HCTZ, or hydrochlorothiazide, is a diuretic. Number 55. Zyrtec is the brand name for A. Loratadine, B. Cetirizine, C. Citalopram, or D. Sertraline? And the answer is B. Cetirizine. Zyrtec is the brand name for cetirizine, and that is a antihistamine for allergy symptoms. Loratadine is the generic name for Claritin, which is also an antihistamine for allergies. Citalopram is the generic name for Celexa, and sertraline is the generic name for Zoloft, and those are both SSRI antidepressants. Number 56. Which of the following is a brand name of estradiol? A. Prometrium, B. Clamera, C. Agestin, or D. None of the above? And the answer is B. Clemera is a brand name of estradiol, which is an estrogen hormone. Prometrium is a brand name of progesterone. Agestin is a brand name for norethindrone, which is a progesterone hormone. So all of these medications are hormones. Number 57, true or false? Low estrogen is a combination hormone medication. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Low estrogen, it's ethinyl estradiol with norethindrone. It's an estrogen-progesterone hormone combination. Number 58. The generic name for Ativan is A, alprazolam, B, diazepam, C, lorazepam, or D, clonazepam. And the answer is C, lorazepam is the generic name for Ativan. Alprazolam is the generic name for Xanax. Diazepam is the generic name for Valium. And clonazepam is the generic name for Klonopin. And these are all benzodiazepines for anxiety. Number 59. Quetiapine is A or an blank. A, antiviral, B, antidepressant, C, stimulant, or D, antipsychotic. And the answer is D, antipsychotic. Quetiapine is an antipsychotic. Its brand name is Seroquel. Number 60. Ambien, a Schedule blank medication, is for blank. A, Schedule 2 for sleep. B, Schedule 3 for sleep. C, Schedule 4 for sleep, or D, Schedule 4 for anxiety. And the answer is C. Ambien is a Schedule 4 medication for sleep. And remember, Schedule 4 medications generally include the sleep and anxiety medications. And the generic name for Ambien is Zolpidem. Number 61. Dristol is a or an blank supplement. A, magnesium, B, iron, C, vitamin D2, or D, vitamin B12. And the answer is C, vitamin D2. Dristol is a vitamin D2 supplement. It's also known as ergocalciferol. Magox is a brand name for magnesium supplements. Iron is also known as ferrous sulfate or by the brand name Thiazole. And vitamin B12 is also known as cyanocobalamin. Number 62. Budesonide with formoterol is the generic name for A, Advair, B, Symbicort, C, Combivent, or D, Proventil. And the answer is B, Symbicort. Budesonide with formoterol is the generic name for Symbicort. And that is a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator combination for asthma and other lung diseases. Advair is fluticasone with salmeterol. That's also a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator combination. Combivent is ipratropium with albuterol. That's an anticholinergic and beta-2 bronchodilator combination. And Proventil is just albuterol, which is a beta-2 bronchodilator. And all these are medications for asthma or other lung diseases, all inhaled products. Number 63, true or false? Spironolactone is a loop diuretic. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Spironolactone, or its brand name is aldactone, is a potassium-sparing diuretic. Number 64. Ondansetron is a 5-HT3 antagonist with the brand name A, Imitrex, B, Maxalt, C, Zofran, or D, Zocor. And the answer is C, Zofran. Ondansetron is a 5-HT3 antagonist with the brand name of Zofran. And that's a medication for nausea and vomiting. Imitrex is the brand name for sumatriptan. Maxalt is a brand name for rizatriptan. And both of those are 5-HT agonists, and 5-HT, it also means serotonin. And Zocor, it is simvastatin, which is a statin drug for high cholesterol. Number 65. Novolog is the brand name for A. Insulin Lispro, B. Insulin Aspart, C. Insulin Glargine, or D. Insulin Detamir. And the answer is B. Insulin Aspart. Novolog is the brand name for insulin aspart. Insulin Lispro is Humalog, and both Lispro and Aspart insulins are rapid-acting insulins. Insulin Glargine is Lantus, and insulin Detamir is Levomir, and both of those are long-acting insulins. Number 66. True or false? Eliquis is a vitamin K antagonist blood thinner. A. True or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Eliquis, which is apixaban, is a direct factor Xa inhibitor blood thinner. Warfarin, or Coumadin, is the vitamin K antagonist blood thinner. Number 67. The brand name of naproxen is A. Naproxen, B. Voltaren, C. Motrin, or D. Mobic. And the answer is A. Naproxen, is the brand name of naproxen. Voltaren is the brand name of diclofenac. Motrin is a brand name for ibuprofen, and Mobic is the brand name for Meloxicam. And all of these medications are NSAIDs for pain and inflammation. Number 68. Lamictal is the brand name for A. Linagliptin, B. Lamotrigine, C. Liraglutide, or D. Liothyronine. And the answer is B. Lamotrigine. Lamictal is the brand name for lamotrigine. Linagliptin is Tradjenta, which is a DPP4 inhibitor for diabetes. Liraglutide is Trulicity, which is a GLP-1 analog for diabetes. And liothyronine is Cytomel, which is a synthetic T3 thyroid hormone. Number 69. The brand name of fluticasone with salmeterol is A. Symbicort, B. Combivent, C. Advair, or D. Duoneb. And the answer is C. Advair is the brand name of fluticasone with salmeterol. And this is a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator combination medication. Symbicort, it's the brand name for budesonide with formoterol, which is also a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator. Combivent is a brand name for ipratropium with albuterol, which is an anticholinergic and beta-2 bronchodilator. And Duoneb is a brand name for also ipratropium with albuterol. It's a nebulizer form, whereas Combivent is an inhaler form. And all of these medications are for asthma or other lung diseases. They're all inhaled products. Number 70. Pregabalin is the generic name for A. Neurontin, B. Lyrica, C. Celebrex, or D. Leorcel. And the answer is B. Lyrica. Pregabalin is the generic name for Lyrica, and that's a medication. It's technically in the anticonvulsant class, but it's a medication for nerve pain. Neurontin, its generic name is Gabapentin, and it's an anticonvulsant used for seizures or nerve pain. Celebrex, its generic is Celecoxib, and it's a COX-2 selective NSAID for pain and inflammation. And Leorcel is the brand name for Baclofen, which is a muscle relaxant. Number 71. Glimepiride is a medication for A. Pain, B. Rheumatoid arthritis, C. High blood pressure, or D. Diabetes. And the answer is D. Diabetes. Glimepiride is a medication for diabetes. It's in the sulfonylurea class, and its brand name is Amaryl. Number 72. Diclofenac is A or an blank for blank. A. Opioid analgesic for pain. B. Xanthine oxidase inhibitor for gout. C. Steroid for inflammation. Or D. NSAID for pain and inflammation. And the answer is D. Diclofenac is a NSAID for pain and inflammation, and its brand name is Voltaren. Number 73, true or false? Fenofibrate is an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor for high cholesterol. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Fenofibrate, its brand name is Tricor, is a fibric acid derivative for high cholesterol and triglycerides. And you can see that it has the fibrate ending. It does not have the statin ending, which is what the HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors end with, is statin. Number 74, true or false? Paroxetine is the brand name for Paxil, an SSRI antidepressant. A, true, or B, false? The answer is B, false. Paroxetine is the generic name for Paxil, which the rest of the statement is true. It is an SSRI antidepressant, but paroxetine is the generic name for Paxil, not the brand name for Paxil. Paxil is the brand name. Number 75. Clonidine is a or an blank for high blood pressure. A, beta blocker. B, SSRI. C, alpha blocker. Or D, alpha agonist. And the answer is D. Clonidine is an alpha agonist for high blood pressure, and its brand name is Catapres. It also goes by the brand name Capvey, and that's marketed for ADHD. Number 76. The generic name for Claritin is A, loratadine, B, hydroxyzine, C, cetirizine, or D, diphenhydramine. And the answer is A, loratadine is the generic name for Claritin. Hydroxyzine is the generic name for Atarax or Vistaril. Cetirizine is the generic name for Zyrtec, and diphenhydramine is the generic name for Benadryl. And all of these are antihistamines that are used for allergy symptoms. Number 77. Diltiazem is a or an blank for blank. A, beta blocker for high blood pressure. B, alpha blocker for high blood pressure. C, beta agonist for high blood pressure. Or D, calcium channel blocker for high blood pressure. And the answer is D. Diltiazem is a calcium channel blocker for high blood pressure. Its brand name is Cardizem, and it is also used for abnormal heart rhythm because it's a non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker. Number 78. Atarax and Vistaril are brand names of A, hydralazine, B, hydroxyzine, C, cetirizine, or D, montelukast. And the answer is B, hydroxyzine. Atarax and Vistaril are brand names of hydroxyzine, which is an antihistamine used for symptoms of itching with allergic reactions, and it's also used for anxiety. Hydralazine, that's, you got to watch, they're very close, look-alike, sound-alike drugs with hydroxyzine and hydralazine. But hydralazine is brand name is apresilene, and it's a medication for high blood pressure. Cetirizine is the generic for Zyrtec, which is an antihistamine, and montelukast is the generic for Singulair, which is a leukotriene inhibitor for allergies or asthma. Number 79, true or false? Amitriptyline is a tricyclic antidepressant. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Amitriptyline is a tricyclic antidepressant, and its brand name is Elavil. Number 80. A brand name of doxycycline is A, Vibramycin, B, Zithromax, C, Cleocin, or D, Diflucan. And the answer is A. Fibromycin is a brand name of doxycycline. And that is a tetracycline antibiotic. Zithromax is the brand name for azithromycin, which is a macrolide antibiotic. Cleocin is the brand name for clindamycin, which is a lincosamide antibiotic. And diflucan is a brand name for fluconazole, which is a azole antifungal. Number 81. Orthocycline is a or an blank. A. Thyroid hormone. B. Antibiotic. C. Estrogen progesterone hormone. Or D. Iron supplement. And the answer is C. Orthocycline is an estrogen and progesterone hormone. Its generic name is ethinyl estradiol with norgestimate. Number 82. The brand name for lisdexamfetamine is A. Adderall, B. Focalin, C. Ritalin, or D. Vyvanse. And the answer is D. Vyvanse. That's the brand name for lisdexamfetamine. Adderall is the brand name for dextroamphetamine with amphetamine. Focalin is the brand name for dexmethylphenidate. And Ritalin is the brand name for methylphenidate. And all of those medications are CNS stimulants for ADHD, and they're a DEA Schedule II. Number 83. Sitagliptin is a diabetes medication in the blank class. A. GLP-1 analog. B. DPP-4 inhibitor. C. Sulfonylurea. Or D. TZD. And the answer is B. Sitagliptin is a diabetes medication in the DPP-4 inhibitor class. And you notice it has the gliptin suffix, which is what the DPP-4 inhibitors have. The GLP-1 analogs, those are injectable products with the glutide suffix. The sulfonylureas are glipizide and glimepiride, the older medications for diabetes. And the TZDs have the glitazone suffix. And the brand name of sitagliptin is Januvia, and is a DPP-4 inhibitor. Number 84. The brand name for latanoprost is A. Xalatan, B. Timoptic, C. Alphagan P, or D. Travatan Z. And the answer is A. Xalatan is the brand name for latanoprost. And it is a prostaglandin analog. Timoptic is the brand name for Timolol, which is a beta blocker. Alphagan P is the brand name for brimonidine, which is an alpha agonist. And Travatan Z is the brand name for Travoprost, which is also a prostaglandin analog like the Xalatan. And all of these medications are eye drops for glaucoma. Number 85. The brand name of cephalexin is A. Omnicef, B. Augmentin, C. Keflex, or D. Cleocin. And the answer is C. Keflex is the brand name of cephalexin, and that is a cephalosporin antibiotic. Omnicef is the brand name for Ceftonir, which is also a cephalosporin antibiotic. Augmentin is the brand name for amoxicillin with clavulanic acid. That's a penicillin antibiotic. And Cleocin is the brand name for clindamycin, which is a lincosamide antibiotic. Number 86. Tizanidine is A or an blank. A. Benzodiazepine. B. Muscle relaxant. C. Opioid analgesic. Or D. Antidepressant. And the answer is B. Muscle relaxant. Tizanidine is a muscle relaxant, and its brand name is Xanaflex. Number 87. True or false? Propecia and Proscar are brand names for tamsulosin. A. True or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Propecia and Proscar are finasteride. And they are 5-alpha reductase inhibitors for hair loss and BPH. Propecia is the brand name marketed for hair loss. Proscar is the brand name for BPH, so their generic name is finasteride. Tamsulosin is Flomax, and that is a urinary selective alpha blocker for BPH. Number 88. Lovastatin is the generic name for A. Lipitor, B. Crestor, C. Mevacor, or D. Zocor. And the answer is C. Mevacor is a brand name for lovastatin. Lipitor is atorvastatin, Crestor is rosuvastatin, and Zocor is simvastatin. And all these are medications, statins, or HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors for high cholesterol. Number 89. The generic name of Topamax is A. Topiramate, B. Gabapentin, C. Lamotrigine, or D. Oxcarbazepine. And the answer is A. Topiramate is the generic name of Topamax. Gabapentin is the generic for Neurontin. Lamotrigine is a generic name for Lamictal, and oxcarbazepine is a generic name for Trileptal. And all these medications are anticonvulsants for seizures. Number 90. The brand name for insulin Lispro is A. Novolog, B. Humalog, C. Basaglar, or D. Levemir. And the answer is B. Humalog is the brand name for insulin Lispro. Novolog is the brand name for insulin Aspart, and both of those are rapid-acting insulins. Basaglar is a brand name for insulin Glargine, and Lantus is also. Levemir is a brand name for insulin Detamir, and both of those are long-acting insulins. Number 91. The generic name for Bactrim or Septra is A. Amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, B. Nitrofurantoin, C. Sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim, or D. Triamterene with HCTZ. And the answer is C. Sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim is the generic name for Bactrim or Septra. And it is a sulfa antibiotic. Amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, it's the generic name for Augmentin, which is a penicillin antibiotic. Nitrofurantoin is the generic for Macrobid or Macrodantin, which are nitrofuran antibiotics. And Triamterene with HCTZ, its brand name is Maxide or Diazide. That is a diuretic combination for high blood pressure and swelling. Number 92. The brand name of Buspirone is A. Wellbutrin, B. Buspar, C. Ambien, or D. Pulmicort. And the answer is B. Buspar is the brand name of Buspirone, and it's a medication for anxiety. Wellbutrin is the brand name for Bupropion. That's an NDRI antidepressant, also used for smoking cessation. Under the name Zyban is how it's prescribed with that. Ambien is the brand name for Zolpidem, which is a non-benzodiazepine sleep aid. And Pulmicort is the brand name for Budesonide, which is an inhaled steroid medication for lung disease. Number 93. Oseltamivir is an blank. A. Antibiotic, B. Antipsychotic, C. Antifungal, or D. Antiviral. And the answer is D. Antiviral. Oseltamivir is an antiviral. And you can see that it ends in the vir suffix. And the brand name is Tamiflu, and it's actually an antiviral for the influenza virus. Number 94. Ferrous sulfate, or Fiasol, is a or an blank supplement. A. Vitamin B12, B. Iron, C. Calcium, or D. Potassium. And the answer is B. Iron. Ferrous sulfate, or Fiasol, is an iron supplement. Number 95. The generic name of Augmentin is A. Amoxicillin, B. Amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, C. Sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim, or D, azithromycin? And the answer is B. The generic name of Augmentin is amoxicillin with clavulanic acid. Amoxicillin by itself is just Amoxil is the brand name. Sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim is Bactrim or Septra, and azithromycin is Zithromax. Amoxicillin and amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, those are in the penicillin antibiotic class. Sulfamethoxazole with trimethoprim is a sulfa antibiotic, and azithromycin is a macrolide antibiotic in the class with erythromycin. Number 96. The brand name of valsartan is A. Avapro, B. Diovan, C. Cozar, or D. Altase? And the answer is B. Diovan. That's the brand name of valsartan. Avapro is the brand name for irbesartan, and Cozar is the brand name for losartan. And you can see those three all have the sartan suffix, so that means they are ARBs, or angiotensin receptor blockers for high blood pressure. And Altase, it's the brand name for Ramipril, and the pril suffix, we know by that it is an ACE inhibitor for high blood pressure. Number 97. True or false? The brand name of levetiracetam is Keppra. A. True or B. False? And the answer is A. True. The brand name of levetiracetam is Keppra, and it's an anticonvulsant medication for seizures. Number 98. True or false? The brand name of hydralazine is Apresyline. A. True or B. False? And the answer is A. True. The brand name of hydralazine is Apresyline. And have a note here that this is a common look-alike, sound-alike drug with hydroxyzine. Its brand name is Atarax or Vistaril, and it's for allergies or anxiety. And this is hydralazine with the brand name of Apresyline for high blood pressure. So you can see there's only 3-letter difference between their generic names, so that's one to especially watch out for. Number 99. The generic name of Remeron is A. Sertraline, B. Nortriptyline, C. Mirtazapine, or D. Fluoxetine? And the answer is C. Mirtazapine is the generic name of Remeron. Sertraline is the generic name of Zoloft. Nortriptyline is the generic name of Pamelor, and fluoxetine is the generic name of Prozac. And all of these medications are antidepressants. Number 100. The generic name of Xarelto is A. Apixaban, B. Rivaroxaban, C. Warfarin, or D. Clopidogrel? And the answer is B. Rivaroxaban is the generic name of Xarelto. Apixaban is the generic name of Eliquis. And remember, these two are both direct factor Xa inhibitor blood thinners. Warfarin is the generic name for Coumadin, which is a vitamin K antagonist blood thinner. And Clopidogrel is the generic name for Plavix, which is an antiplatelet. Number 101. Aripiprazole is an blank. A. Antifungal, B. Antiviral, C. Antidepressant, or D. Antipsychotic? And the answer is D. Antipsychotic. Aripiprazole is an antipsychotic. Its brand name is Abilify. Number 102. Oxybutynin is a medication for A. Pain, B. Infection, C. Overactive bladder, or D. Glaucoma? And the answer is C. Overactive bladder. Oxybutynin is a medication for overactive bladder. Its brand names are Ditropan, that's a tablet taken by mouth, or Oxytrol, that is a patch that's worn on the skin. Number 103. The generic name of Nexium is A. Omeprazole, B. Esomeprazole, C. Pantoprazole, or D. Lansoprazole? And the answer is B. Esomeprazole is the generic name for Nexium. Omeprazole is the generic name for Prilosec. Pantoprazole is the generic name for Protonix. And Lansoprazole is the generic name for Prevacid. And all four of these medications are PPIs, or proton pump inhibitors, for GERD or heartburn. Number 104. The brand name of alendronate is A. Tessalon Pearls, B. Cortisone, C. Maxalt, or D. Fosamax. And the answer is D. Fosamax is the brand name of alendronate, and that's a bisphosphonate used for osteoporosis. Tessalon Pearls is the brand name for benzonatate. That's a cough medication. Cortisone is the brand name for amiodarone, which is a medication for abnormal heart rhythms. Maxalt is the brand name of rizatriptan, which is a serotonin agonist for migraine headaches. Number 105. Vitamin B9 is supplemented with blank. A. Cyanocobalamin, B. Folic acid, C. Thiamine, or D. Riboflavin. And the answer is B. Folic acid. That is synthetic vitamin B9. Cyanocobalamin is vitamin B12. Thiamine is vitamin B1, and riboflavin is vitamin B2. Number 106. The brand name of triamcinolone cream is A. Kenalog, B. Cortisone, C. Aristocort, or D. both A and C. And the answer is D. Both A and C. Kenalog and Aristocort are both brand names of triamcinolone cream. Cortisone is a brand name for hydrocortisone cream. And all of these are steroid creams that are applied topically to the skin. Number 107. The generic name of Spiriva is A. Tiotropium, B. Budesonide, C. Albuterol with ipratropium, or D. Salmeterol with fluticasone. And the answer is A. Tiotropium. The generic name of Spiriva is tiotropium, and that is an anticholinergic bronchodilator used in various lung diseases. Budesonide is a steroid. The brand name is Pulmicort. Albuterol with ipratropium is a combination bronchodilator product, beta-2 bronchodilator and a anticholinergic bronchodilator, brand name of Combivent or Duoneb. And salmeterol with fluticasone is a steroid and beta-2 bronchodilator combination, brand name is Advair. And these are all inhaled products for various lung disease. Number 108. Which of the following are thyroid medications? A. Armour Thyroid, B. Cytomel, C. Synthroid, or D. all of the above. And the answer is D. All of the above are thyroid medications. Armour Thyroid, that is just thyroid. Cytomel is liothyronine, and that's a synthetic T3 thyroid hormone. Synthroid is levothyroxine, which is a synthetic T4 thyroid hormone. Number 109. The generic name for Cipro is A. Cephalexin, B. Ciprofloxacin, C. Clindamycin, or D. Ceftonir. And the answer is B. Ciprofloxacin is the generic name for Cipro, and it's a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Cephalexin is a generic name for Keflex, which is a cephalosporin antibiotic. Clindamycin is the generic name for Cleocin, which is a lincosamide antibiotic. And Ceftonir is the generic name for Omnicef, which, like cephalexin, is a cephalosporin antibiotic. Number 110. The brand name for isosorbide mononitrate is A. Nitrostat, B. Isordil, C. Imdur, or D. Indocin. And the answer is C. Imdur is the brand name for isosorbide mononitrate. and that is a medication used to prevent chest pain. It's a nitrate vasodilator. Nitrostat, it's also a nitrate vasodilator for chest pain. Its generic name is nitroglycerin. Iserdil, it's also in the same class, a nitrate vasodilator. Its generic name is isosorbide dinitrate. And Indocin is the brand name for indomethacin, which is an NSAID for pain and inflammation. Number 111. Sumatriptan is a medication for A. Allergies, B. Gout, C. High blood pressure, or D. Migraine headaches. And the answer is D. Migraine headaches. Sumatriptan is a medication for migraine headaches. Its brand name is Imitrex. Number 112. Insulin Detamir is a blank acting insulin with the brand name of blank. A. Long-acting insulin, Lantus. B. Long-acting insulin, Levomir. C. Rapid-acting insulin, Humalog. Or D. Rapid-acting insulin, Levomir. And the answer is B. Insulin Detamir is a long-acting insulin with the brand name of Levomir. Number 113. The brand name of benzonatate is A. Tessalon Pearls, B. Mucinex, C. Antivert, or D. Zofran. And the answer is A. Tessalon Pearls is the brand name of benzonatate, and it's a cough medication. Mucinex is a brand name for guaifenesin, which is a medication for chest congestion. Antivert is a brand name for meclizine, which is an antihistamine medication for dizziness and motion sickness. And Zofran is the brand name for Ondansetron, which is a 5-HT3 antagonist for nausea and vomiting. Number 114. The brand name of famotidine is A. Prevacid, B. Pepcid, C. Protonix, or D. Tagamet. And the answer is B. Pepcid is the brand name of famotidine. Prevacid is the brand name of lansoprazole. Protonix is the brand name of pantoprazole, and Tagamet is the brand name of cimetidine. Prevacid and Protonix both are PPI medications for heartburn and GERD, and Pepcid and Tagamet are both H2 blockers for heartburn. Number 115. Diazepam is the generic name of which benzodiazepine? A. Xanax, B. Klonopin, C. Valium, or D. Restoril. And the answer is C. Valium. Diazepam is the generic name of Valium. Alprazolam is the generic name of Xanax. Clonazepam is the generic name of Klonopin, and Temazepam is the generic name for Restoril. And all four of these medications are benzodiazepines used for anxiety or sleep. Number 116. Requip is a dopamine agonist for Parkinson's disease and restless leg syndrome with a generic name of A. Pramipexole, B. Carbidopa with levodopa, C. Methocarbamol, or D. Ropinirole. And the answer is D. Ropinirole. Requip is a dopamine agonist for Parkinson's disease and restless leg syndrome with the generic name of Ropinirole. Pramipexole is the generic name for Mirapex, and these are both dopamine agonists. Carbidopa with levodopa is Sinemet. It's also medication for Parkinson's disease to help increase dopamine. And methocarbamol is the generic name for Robaxin, and that's a muscle relaxant. Number 117. The brand name of triamterene with HCTZ is A. Maxide, B. Microzide, C. Direnium, or D. Lasix. And the answer is A. Maxide is the brand name of triamterene with HCTZ. Microzide is the brand name of HCTZ. That's the abbreviation for hydrochlorothiazide. Direnium is the brand name for triamterene, and Lasix is the brand name for furosemide. And all of those medications are diuretics, used for high blood pressure or for swelling. Number 118. Lotensin is a or an blank for high blood pressure. A, beta blocker, B, calcium channel blocker, C, ACE inhibitor, or D, ARB. And the answer is C. Lotensin is an ACE inhibitor for high blood pressure, and its generic name is benazepril. And so you can see it ends with the pril suffix, which is what ACE inhibitors end with. Number 119. The brand name of metronidazole is A, diflucan, B, flagyl, C, Valtrex, or D, macrobid. And the answer is B. Flagyl is the brand name for metronidazole, and that's an antibiotic. Diflucan is the brand name for fluconazole, which is an antifungal. Valtrex is the brand name for valacyclovir, which is an antiviral. And macrobid is the brand name for nitrofurantoin, which is also an antibiotic. Number 120. Methocarbamol is the generic name for A, Flexeril, B, Xanaflex, C, Lioracel, or D, Robaxin. And the answer is D, Robaxin. Methocarbamol is the generic name for Robaxin. Flexeril is the brand name for cyclobenzaprine. Xanaflex is tizanidine, and Lioracel is baclofen. And all four of these are muscle relaxants. Number 121. True or false? Nifedipine is a dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Nifedipine is a dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker. A brand name for nifedipine is Procardia. And I have a note here that dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers are for high blood pressure. The non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blockers, which are verapamil and diltiazem, they're for high blood pressure and also for abnormal heart rhythms. Number 122. Baclofen is a or an blank. A, benzodiazepine, B, muscle relaxant, C, antibiotic, or D, NSAID. And the answer is B. Baclofen is a muscle relaxant, and its brand name is Lioracel. Number 123. A medication used for both rheumatoid arthritis and certain types of cancer is A, adalimumab, B, hydroxychloroquine, C, methotrexate, or D, alendronate. And the answer is C, methotrexate. It is a medication used for both rheumatoid arthritis and certain types of cancer. And Trexol is a brand name for it. There are some other brand names with methotrexate. Trexol is one brand name. Adalimumab is the generic name for Humira, which is for rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis. Hydroxychloroquine, that's the generic name for Plaquenil, which is also used in rheumatoid arthritis, and it's also a medication for malaria. And alendronate is the generic name for Fosamax, which is a bisphosphonate for osteoporosis. Number 124. Which of the following is a brand name for testosterone? A, estrace, B, prometrium, C, proscar, or D, androgel? And the answer is D. Androgel is a brand name for testosterone. And remember, this is a DEA Schedule III medication. Testosterone is included in the DEA Schedule IIIs. Estrace is a brand name for estradiol. Prometrium is a brand name for progesterone. Both of those are hormones. And proscar is the brand name for finasteride, which is a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor for BPH. Number 125. The brand name of ezetimibe is A. Zetia, B. Tricor, C. Lavazza, or D. Zocor? And the answer is A. Zetia is the brand name of ezetimibe, and it's a medication for high cholesterol. Tricor is the brand name of fenofibrate, which is a medication for triglycerides and cholesterol. Lavazza is the brand name of omega-3 acid ethyl esters, which is a medication for cholesterol and triglycerides. And Zocor is the brand name of simvastatin, which is a statin medication for high cholesterol. Number 126. Celebrex is a or an blank. A. Muscle relaxant, B. Opioid analgesic, C. NSAID, or D. Steroid? And the answer is C. Celebrex is a NSAID, and more specifically, it's a COX-2 selective NSAID, meaning it has less gastrointestinal side effects such as stomach upset, because it blocks only the COX-2 enzyme and not the COX-1 and COX-2, like many of the other NSAIDs. And the generic name for Celebrex is celecoxib. Number 127. True or false? Guaifenesin is a medication for chest congestion. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is A. True. Guaifenesin is a medication for chest congestion. Its brand names are Robitussin and Mucinex. Number 128. Donepezil is a medication for A. Sleep, B. Dementia, C. Allergies, or D. Heartburn? And the answer is B. Dementia. Donepezil is a medication for dementia. Its brand name is Aricept. Number 129. The generic name of Plaquenil is A. Methotrexate, B. Adalimumab, C. Hydroxychloroquine, or D. Hydroxyzine? And the answer is C. Hydroxychloroquine is the generic name of Plaquenil, and it's an anti-malarial medication that's used for rheumatoid arthritis as well. Methotrexate, that's also a medication for rheumatoid arthritis and certain types of cancer, and one of the brand names for it is Trexall. Adalimumab is the generic name for Humira, which is a tumor necrosis factor inhibitor used in psoriasis and rheumatoid arthritis. And hydroxyzine is the generic name for Atarax or Vistaril, and that's an antihistamine that's used with allergies and also for anxiety. Number 130. True or false? The brand name for clindamycin is Zithromax. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is B. False. The brand name for clindamycin is Cleocin. Zithromax is the brand name for azithromycin. And azithromycin is a macrolide antibiotic related to erythromycin. Clindamycin, although it has the mycin ending, is not a macrolide antibiotic. It's a lincosamide antibiotic. Number 131. Depakote is the brand name of A. Divalproex sodium, B. oxcarbazepine, C. Diazepam, or D. Lamotrigine? And the answer is A. Divalproex sodium. Depakote's the brand name of divalproex sodium. Trileptal is the brand name of oxcarbazepine. Valium is the brand name of diazepam. And Lamictal is the brand name of lamotrigine. And all of these medications can be used in seizures. Diazepam, it's a benzodiazepine, also used in anxiety, but it does have the use of seizures as well. Number 132. Roxanol and MS-Contin are brand names of A. Oxycodone, B. Morphine, C. Hydrocodone, or D. Tramadol? And the answer is B. Morphine. Roxanol and MS-Contin are both brand names of morphine. Roxanol is an immediate release morphine, and MS-Contin is an extended release morphine product. And both of these with morphine are DEA Schedule II. Number 133. Alise and Seasonique contain estradiol and A. Etonogestrel, B. Norgestimate, C. Levonorgestrel, or D. Norethindrone. And the answer is C. Alise and Seasonique contain estradiol and levonorgestrel. Etonogestrel with estradiol is NuvaRing. The estradiol with norgestimate is orthocycline, and estradiol with norethindrone is microgestin. Number 134. Orapred and Prelone are brand names of A. Prednisone, B. Prednisolone, C. Triamcinolone, or D. Hydrocortisone. And the answer is B. Prednisolone. Orapred and Prelone are brand names of prednisolone. Deltazone is a brand name for prednisone. Kenalog and Aristocort are brand names for topical triamcinolone. And cortisone is a brand name for topical hydrocortisone. And these medications are all steroids used in allergic reactions and inflammation. Number 135. Enalapril is the generic name of A. Vasotec, B. Zestril, C. Altase, or D. Lotensin. And the answer is A. Enalapril is the generic name of Vasotec. Zestril is generic as lisinopril. Ramipril is the generic for Altase, and benazepril is the generic for Lotensin. And as you can see with their pril suffix ending, those are ACE inhibitors used for high blood pressure. Number 136. Actose is the brand name of A. Canagliflozin, B. Liraglutide, C. Pioglitazone, or D. Glimepiride. And the answer is C. Pioglitazone. Actose is the brand name of pioglitazone. Canagliflozin is the generic name for Invokana. Liraglutide is the generic for Victoza, and Glimepiride is the generic name for Amaryl. And these are all medications for diabetes. Number 137. Vitamin B12 is also known as which supplement? A. Cyanocobalamin, B. Ergocalciferol, C. Ferrous sulfate, or D. Folic acid. And the answer is A. Vitamin B12 is also known as cyanocobalamin. Ergocalciferol is vitamin D2, ferrous sulfate is iron, and folic acid is synthetic vitamin B9. Number 138. The brand name of norethindrone is A. Prometrium, B. Androgel, C. Climera, or D. Agestin. And the answer is D. Agestin is the brand name of norethindrone, and that is a progesterone hormone. Prometrium is the brand name for progesterone. Androgel is the brand name for testosterone. And Climera is a brand name for estradiol, which is an estrogen hormone. Number 139. Antivert is a medication for A. Depression, B. Diabetes, C. Motion sickness, or D. Gout. And the answer is C. Motion sickness. Antivert is a medication for motion sickness, and its generic name is Meclizine. Number 140. Valtrex is an blank. A. Antihistamine, B. Antibiotic, C. Antiviral, or D. Antifungal. And the answer is C. Antiviral. Valtrex is an antiviral. Its generic name is valacyclovir. You can see it ends with the vir suffix. That is characteristic of the antiviral medications. Number 141. The generic name for Combivent is A. Salmeterol with fluticasone, B. Formoterol with budesonide, C. Albuterol with ipratropium, or D. Budesonide? And the answer is C. The generic name for Combivent is albuterol with ipratropium, and that is a beta-2 bronchodilator anticholinergic bronchodilator combination. Salmeterol with fluticasone is a generic for Advair. That's a long-acting beta-2 bronchodilator and steroid combination. Formoterol with budesonide is the generic name for Symbicort, which is a long-acting beta-2 bronchodilator with a steroid. And budesonide, that's just a steroid, its generic is Pulmicort. And those are all medications for breathing problems, and they're all inhaled medications. Number 142. A brand name for Docusate is A. Colace, B. Miralax, C. Benadryl, or D. Pepcid? And the answer is A. Colace is a brand name for Docusate, and that is a stool softener that's used for constipation. Miralax is a brand name for polyethylene glycol, which is a laxative used for constipation. Benadryl is a brand name for diphenhydramine, which is an antihistamine used for allergies. Pepcid is a brand name for famotidine, which is an H2 blocker for heartburn. Number 143. True or false? Liraglutide is a GLP-1 analog for diabetes. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is A. True. Liraglutide is a GLP-1 analog for diabetes, and its brand name is Victoza. And a note here too that the GLP-1 analogs, they are injectables. Number 144. Hydrocortisone cream is a generic name for A. Kenalog, B. Aristocort, C. Cortisone, or D. Prelone? And the answer is C. Cortisone. Hydrocortisone cream is a generic name for cortisone. Kenalog and Aristocort are both brand names for triamcinolone, and Prelone is a brand name for prednisolone, and all of these are steroids used for allergic reactions and inflammation. Number 145. True or false? Verapamil is a beta blocker for high blood pressure and abnormal heart rhythms. A. True, or B. False? The answer is B. False. Verapamil is not a beta blocker. It's a non-dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker that's used for high blood pressure and abnormal heart rhythm. And its brand names are Kalin and Verilin. Number 146. Omnicef is the brand name for A. Cephalexin, B. Clindamycin, C. Ceftonir, or D. Ciprofloxacin? And the answer is C. Ceftonir. Omnicef is the brand name for Ceftonir. It's a cephalosporin antibiotic. Keflex is the brand name for Cephalexin. It's also a cephalosporin antibiotic. Cleocin is the brand name for Clindamycin, which is a lincosamide antibiotic. And Cipro is the brand name for ciprofloxacin, which is a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Number 147. The generic name of Pamelor is blank. It's a blank. A. Amitriptyline TCA, B. Nortriptyline TCA, C. Amitriptyline SSRI, or D. Nortriptyline SSRI? And the answer is B. The generic name of Pamelor is nortriptyline, and it's a TCA, which that's an abbreviation for tricyclic antidepressant. Amitriptyline is the generic name for Elavil, which is also a tricyclic antidepressant. Number 148. Timolol is a medication for A. Gout, B. Diabetes, C. Weight loss, or D. Glaucoma? And the answer is D. Glaucoma. Timolol is a medication for glaucoma. Its brand name is Timoptic, and this is an eye drop used for glaucoma. And you'll notice the LOL ending. Timolol is a beta blocker. Number 149. The brand name of dulaglutide is A. Trulicity, B. Victoza, C. Invokana, or D. Januvia. And the answer is A. Trulicity is the brand name of dulaglutide, and it is a GLP-1 analog, injectable. Victoza is the brand name of liraglutide, which is also an injectable GLP-1 analog. Invokana is the brand name for canagliflozin, which is a SGLT2 inhibitor. And Januvia is the brand name for sitagliptin, which is a DPP4 inhibitor. These are all medications for diabetes. Number 150. The generic name for Phenergan is A. Meclizine, B. Promethazine, C. Phentermine, or D. Ondansetron. And the answer is B. Promethazine is the generic name for Phenergan. And this is a medication for nausea and vomiting. It's actually in the antihistamine class. Meclizine is the generic name for Anavert. It's also in the antihistamine class, used for dizziness and motion sickness. Phentermine is the generic name for Adipex. It's a medication for weight loss. And Ondansetron is the generic for Zofran, which is a serotonin antagonist for nausea and vomiting. Number 151. The brand name of acyclovir is A. Valtrex, B. Tamiflu, C. Zovirax, or D. Nizoral. And the answer is C. Zovirax is a brand name of acyclovir, and it's an antiviral, that by the vir suffix on the end of the generic name. Valtrex is a brand name for valacyclovir, also an antiviral with the vir suffix. Tamiflu is also an antiviral. It's the generic name is oseltamivir, and it has the vir suffix once again. And Nizoral is the brand name for ketoconazole, and it's an antifungal. Number 152. The generic name for diflucan is A. Metronidazole, B. Fluconazole, C. Ketoconazole, or D. Ergocalciferol. And the answer is B. Fluconazole is the generic name for diflucan, and it's an antifungal. Metronidazole is the generic name for Flagyl, which is an antibiotic. Ketoconazole is the generic name for Nizoral, which is also an antifungal. And ergocalciferol is a generic name for Dristol, which is a vitamin D2 supplement. Number 153. The generic name of Medrol is A. Prednisone, B. Prednisolone, C. Methylprednisolone, or D. Triamcinolone. And the answer is C. Methylprednisolone is a generic name of Medrol. Prednisone is a generic name for Deltazone. Prednisolone is a generic name for Orapred and Prelone. And Triamcinolone is a generic name for Kenalog and Aristocort. And these are all steroids. Number 154. The generic name of Janumet is A. Canagliflozin, B. Sitagliptin, C. Metformin with sitagliptin, or D. Metformin. And the answer is C. The generic name of Janumet is Metformin with sitagliptin. Canagliflozin is the generic name for Invokana. Sitagliptin is the generic name for Januvia, and Metformin is a generic name for Glucophage. And all of these are oral medications for diabetes. Number 155. The brand name of Ramipril is A. Lotensin, B. Altase, C. Vasotec, or D. Prenavil. And the answer is B. Altase is the brand name of Ramipril. Lotensin is the brand name of Benazepril. Vasotec is the brand name for Enalapril. And Prenavil is the brand name for Lisinopril. And all those medications are ACE inhibitors, so they have the pril suffix. Number 156. The generic name of Focalin is A. Amphetamine with dextroamphetamine, B. Methylphenidate, C. Lisdexamphetamine, or D. Dexmethylphenidate. And the answer is D. The generic name of Focalin is dexmethylphenidate. Amphetamine with dextroamphetamine is Adderall, methylphenidate is Ritalin, and lisdexamphetamine is Vyvanse. And these are all CNS stimulant medications used for ADHD, and they are a DEA Schedule II. Number 157. The generic name of alpha-GAN P is A. Timolol, B. Latanoprost, C. Brimonidine, or D. Trazodone. And the answer is C. Brimonidine is the generic name of alpha-GAN P, and it's an alpha agonist used for glaucoma. Timolol is the generic name for Timoptic, which is a beta blocker used for glaucoma. Latanoprost is the generic name for Zalatan, which is a prostaglandin analog used for glaucoma, and all those three are eye drops. And Trazodone is the generic name for Hytrin, which is an oral medication for high blood pressure and BPH, and it's an alpha blocker. Number 158. True or false? The brand name for carbamazepine is Trileptal. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is B. False. The brand name for oxcarbazepine is Trileptal, not carbamazepine. Carbamazepine is the generic name for Tegretol, and those are both medications used for seizures. Number 159. The generic name of Risperidol is A. Risperidone, B. Rizatriptan, C. Chlorthalidone, or D. Amiodarone. And the answer is A. Risperidone is the generic name of Risperdal, and that's an antipsychotic medication. Rizatriptan is the generic name for Maxalt, and that's a serotonin agonist used for migraine headaches. Chlorthalidone is the generic name of Thalatone, and that's a diuretic used for high blood pressure and swelling. And amiodarone is the generic name for Cordarone, which is a medication used for abnormal heart rhythms. Number 160. Levaquin is in the same antibiotic class as blank. A. Amoxicillin, B. Keflex, C. Cipro, or D. Zithromax. And the answer is C. Cipro. Levaquin is in the same antibiotic class as Cipro, and this class is the fluoroquinolones. And you can see that from the suffix ending. Cipro is ciprofloxacin. Levaquin is levofloxacin. So those are both fluoroquinolone antibiotics. Amoxicillin is amoxicillin, which is a penicillin antibiotic. Keflex is cephalexin, which is a cephalosporin antibiotic. And Zithromax is the brand name for azithromycin, which is a macrolide antibiotic. Number 161. The brand name of chlorthalidone is A. Thalatone, B. Hygrotin, C. Maxide, D. Microzide, or E. Both A and B. And the answer is E. Both A and B, Thalatone and Hygrotin, are brand names for chlorthalidone. Maxide is the brand name for triamterene with HCTZ. Microzide is the brand name for HCTZ. And these medications are all diuretics used for swelling and high blood pressure. Number 162. Atomoxetine is a medication for A. Anxiety, B. ADHD, C. Depression, or D. Bipolar disorder. And the answer is B. ADHD. Atomoxetine is a medication for ADHD, and its brand name is Strattera. And this medication for ADHD is not a stimulant, so it is not a DEA control. Number 163. The generic name of Miralax is A. Docusate, B. Polyethylene glycol, C. Bisacodyl, or D. Pramipexole. And the answer is B. Polyethylene glycol is a generic name for Miralax, and that's a laxative medication for constipation, and also used for GI procedure preparation. Docusate is the generic name for Colace. That's a stool softener for constipation. Bisacodyl is the generic name for Dulcolax, and that's also a laxative for constipation. And Pramipexole is the generic name for Mirapex, which is a dopamine agonist used for Parkinson's disease or restless leg syndrome. Number 164. Caltrate and Oscal contain which supplement? A. Calcium, B. Magnesium, C. Vitamin D, D. Both A and C, calcium and vitamin D, or E. Both B and C, magnesium and vitamin D. And the answer is D. Caltrate and Oscal contain both calcium and vitamin D. Number 165. Mupirocin is a topical blank. Its brand name is blank. A. Steroid, Bactroban. B. Antibiotic, Bactroban. C. Steroid, Kenalog, or D. Antibiotic, Kenalog. And the answer is B. Mupirocin is a topical antibiotic. Its brand name is Bactroban. Number 166. NuvaRing is a or an blank medication. A. Thyroid, B. Progesterone, C. Estrogen with progesterone, or D. Estrogen. And the answer is C. NuvaRing is a estrogen progesterone medication, and its generic name is ethinyl estradiol with etonogestrel. Number 167. True or false? Yasmin is an estrogen-progesterone hormone combination. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is A. True. Yasmin is an estrogen-progesterone hormone combination. Its generic name is ethinyl estradiol and drospirenone. Number 168. Phentermine is a medication for A. Weight loss, B. ADHD, C. Depression, or D. Nausea. And the answer is A. Weight loss. Phentermine is a medication for weight loss, and its brand name is Adipex. Number 169. The generic name of Sinemet is A. Levodopa with carbidopa, B. Pramipexole, C. Ropinirole, or D. Metformin with sitagliptin. And the answer is A. Levodopa with carbidopa is the generic name of Sinemet. And this is a medication that increases dopamine levels used for people with Parkinson's disease. Pramipexole is the generic name of Mirapex. Ropinirole is the generic name for Requip, and both of these are also dopamine agonists used in Parkinson's disease and also restless leg syndrome. And metformin with sitagliptin is the generic name for Janumet, which is a medication for diabetes. Number 170. Lovaza is a medication for A. High blood pressure, B. Abnormal heart rhythm, C, high cholesterol and triglycerides, or D, gout? And the answer is C, high cholesterol and triglycerides. Lovaza is a medication for high cholesterol and triglycerides, and its generic name is omega-3 acid ethyl esters. Number 171. The brand name of ethinyl estradiol with desogestrel is A, orthocycline, B, Desigen, C, Mircet, D, Yasmin, or E, both B and C. And the answer is E, both B and C. Desigen and Mircet are both brand names of ethinyl estradiol with desogestrel. Orthocycline is the brand name of ethinyl estradiol with norgestimate. Yasmin is the brand name of ethinyl estradiol with drospirenone. And these are all estrogen, progesterone, hormone combination medications. Number 172. Guaifenesin is a medication for blank. A, headache, B, high blood pressure, C, chest congestion, or D, allergies. And the answer is C. Guaifenesin is a medication for chest congestion, and the brand names of it are Robitussin and Mucinex. Number 173. The generic name of Maxalt is A, sumatriptan, B, rizatriptan, C, topiramate, or D, divalproex sodium. And the answer is B. Rizatriptan is the generic name for Maxalt. Sumatriptan is the generic name for Imitrex, and both of those medications are serotonin agonists used for migraine headaches. Topiramate is the generic name for Topamax, and divalproex sodium is the generic name for Depakote, and those are both medications used for seizures, but they do also have some use in migraine headache prevention. Number 174. Irbesartan is the generic name for A, Avapro, B, Cozar, C, Diovan, or D, Micardis. And the answer is A, Avapro. Irbesartan is the generic name for Avapro. Losartan is the generic name for Cozar. Valsartan is the generic name for Diovan. And telmisartan is the generic name for Micardis. And you can tell from the sartan suffix that these are all ARBs, or angiotensin receptor blockers, for high blood pressure. Number 175. The brand name of progesterone is A, Estrace, B, Agestin, C, Prometrium, or D, Micronor. And the answer is C. Prometrium is the brand name for progesterone. Estrace is a brand name for estradiol. Agestin is a brand name for norethindrone. That's a progesterone hormone. And Micronor is the brand name for norethindrone also, the progesterone hormone. So these are all hormone medications. Number 176. Cardura is a or an blank for high blood pressure and BPH. A, beta blocker, B, alpha blocker, C, 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, or D, calcium channel blocker. And the answer is B. Cardura is an alpha blocker for high blood pressure and BPH. Its generic name is doxazosin. Number 177. Linagliptin is the generic name of A, Tradjenta, B, Januvia, C, Invokana, or D, Victoza. And the answer is A. Linagliptin is the generic name of Tradjenta, and that is a DPP4 inhibitor. Januvia is a brand name for sitagliptin, which is also a DPP4 inhibitor. Notice they have the gliptin suffix. Invokana is the brand name for canagliflozin. It's an SGLT2 inhibitor. And Victoza is the brand name for liraglutide, which is a GLP-1 analog. and these are all medications for diabetes. Number 178. Humira is a DMARD for A. Rheumatoid arthritis, B. Psoriasis, C. Malaria, D. Both A and B, or E. All of the above. And the answer is D. Both A and B. Humira is a DMARD, which stands for disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drug. It's used for rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis. Its generic name is adalimumab. The medication that's a DMARD that's used for malaria is Plaquenil, which is hydroxychloroquine. Number 179. True or false? Macrobid and macrodantin are macrolide antibiotics. A. True or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Macrobid and macrodantin are nitrofuran antibiotics. Their generic name is nitrofurantoin. Macrolides are the erythromycin antibiotics, such as azithromycin, or Zithromax is the brand name. Number 180. The generic name of Pulmicort is A. Budesonide, B. Formoterol with budesonide, C. Salmeterol with Fluticasone, or D. Albuterol with Ibupropion. And the answer is A. Budesonide is the generic name for Pulmicort, and that is a steroid. Formoterol with budesonide is the generic name for Symbicort, which is a beta-2 bronchodilator and steroid combination. Salmeterol with Fluticasone is the generic name for Advair, which is also a beta-2 bronchodilator and steroid combination. And albuterol with ipratropium is the generic name for Combivent, and that's a beta-2 bronchodilator and anticholinergic bronchodilator combination. And these are all medications used for various lung diseases, all inhaled products. Number 181. Lotrel is the brand name of a blank and blank combination. A. ACE inhibitor and diuretic, B. ARB and calcium channel blocker, C. calcium channel blocker and diuretic, or D. calcium channel blocker and ACE inhibitor. And the answer is D. Lotrel is the brand name of a calcium channel blocker and ACE inhibitor combination. Its generic name is amlodipine with benazepril. Amlodipine is the calcium channel blocker and benazepril is the ACE inhibitor. It's a medication used for blood pressure. Number 182. Diovan HCT is the brand name for A. Losartan with hydrochlorothiazide, B. Valsartan with hydrochlorothiazide, C. Irbesartan with hydrochlorothiazide, or D. Lisinopril with hydrochlorothiazide. And the answer is B. Diovan HCT is the brand name for Valsartan with hydrochlorothiazide. Losartan with hydrochlorothiazide is a generic name for Hyzar. Irbesartan with hydrochlorothiazide is a generic name for Avalide, and lisinopril with hydrochlorothiazide is a generic name for Prenazide. Hyzar, Diovan, and Avalide are all ARB diuretic combination drugs for high blood pressure, and lisinopril with hydrochlorothiazide, Prenazide, is an ACE inhibitor and diuretic combination for high blood pressure. Number 183. The generic name of Lanoxin, a medication for heart failure and irregular heartbeat, is A. Furosemide, B. Spironolactone, C. Atenolol, or D. Digoxin. And the answer is D. Digoxin. That's the generic name of Lanoxin, which is a medication for heart failure and irregular heartbeat. It's in the cardiac glycoside class. Furosemide is the generic name for Lasix, which is a diuretic for swelling, a loop diuretic. Spironolactone is the generic name for Aldactone, which is a potassium-sparing diuretic. Atenolol is the generic name for Tenormin, which is a beta blocker. Number 184, true or false? Fioricet is a combination of acetaminophen, butalbital, and caffeine for tension headache. A, true, or B, false? And the answer is A, true. Fioricet, remember, it's acetaminophen, remember that by the set that's in acetaminophen, butalbital, and caffeine, and it's for tension headache. Fiorinol, that is a product that contains aspirin, butalbital, and caffeine. Number 185. Insulin degludec is the name of which long-acting insulin? A, Basaglar, B, Levomir, C, Lantus, or D, Tresiba? And the answer is D, Tresiba is the brand name for insulin degludec. That is a long-acting insulin. Basaglar is the brand name for insulin glargine. Levomir is a brand name for insulin detamir. Lantus is also a brand name for insulin glargine, like Basaglar, and these are all actually long-acting insulins for diabetes. Number 186. Nizoral is the brand name for A, fluconazole, B, ketoconazole, C, metronidazole, or D, valacyclovir? And the answer is B. Nizoral is the brand name for ketoconazole, and that's an antifungal. Fluconazole is a generic for diflucan, which is also an antifungal. Metronidazole is a generic for Flagyl, which is an antibiotic. And valacyclovir is the generic for Valtrex, which is an antiviral. Number 187. Which medication is for chest pain? A, lisinopril, B, prednisone, C, nitroglycerin, or D, nitrofurantoin? And the answer is C. Nitroglycerin is a medication for chest pain. Lisinopril is a medication for blood pressure, ACE inhibitor. Prednisone is a steroid for allergic reactions, and nitrofurantoin is an antibiotic. Number 188. The brand name of temazepam is A, Valium, B, Restoril, C, Klonopin, or D, Xanax? And the answer is B. Restoril is the brand name of temazepam. Valium is the brand name for diazepam. Klonopin is the brand name for clonazepam. And Xanax is the brand name for alprazolam. And all of these medications are benzodiazepines that are a DEA Schedule 4. Number 189. The generic name of cortisone and pacerone is A, amiodarone, B, digoxin, C, verapamil, or D, diltiazem? And the answer is A. Amiodarone is the generic name of cortisone and pacerone. And that is an antiarrhythmic used for heart rhythm problems. Digoxin is the generic name of Lenoxin, which is a cardiac glycoside also used for heart rhythm and heart failure. Verapamil is the generic name for Kalin and Verilin, which is a calcium channel blocker that's used for high blood pressure and heart rhythms. And diltiazem is the generic name for Cardizem, which is also a calcium channel blocker that's used for high blood pressure and abnormal heart rhythms. Number 190. Namenda is a medication for A, sleep, B, dementia, C, allergies, or D, diabetes? And the answer is B, dementia. Namenda is a medication for dementia. Its generic name is memantine, and its mechanism of action, it's an NMDA receptor antagonist. So you can see that that's where the Namenda brand name came from. Number 191. The generic name of Invokana, a SGLT2 inhibitor for diabetes, is A, liraglutide, B, canagliflozin, C, sitagliptin, or D, dulaglutide? And the answer is B. Canagliflozin is the generic name of Invokana, which is a SGLT2 inhibitor for diabetes. Liraglutide is the generic name for Victoza, which is a GLP-1 analog for diabetes. It's injectable. Sitagliptin is the generic name for Januvia, which is an oral medication for diabetes in the DPP4 inhibitor class. And dulaglutide is the generic name for Trulicity, which is an injectable GLP-1 analog for diabetes. Number 192. What is the brand name of ketorolac? A. Toradol, B. Mobic, C. Naproxen, or D. Celebrex? And the answer is A. Toradol is the brand name for ketorolac. Mobic is the brand name for Meloxicam. Naproxen is the brand name for naproxen. And Celebrex is the brand name for celecoxib. And these four medications are all NSAIDs used for pain and inflammation. Number 193. The brand name of liothyronine is A. Synthroid, B. Armour Thyroid, C. Cytomel, or D. Levoxyl? And the answer is C. Cytomel is the brand name of liothyronine, which is a synthetic T3 thyroid hormone. Synthroid is the brand name of levothyroxine, which is a synthetic T4 thyroid hormone. Armour Thyroid is the brand name of just a thyroid hormone. And Levoxyl is another brand name, like Synthroid, of levothyroxine, which is a synthetic T4 thyroid hormone. Number 194. The brand name for lithium is A. Escalith, B. Lithobid, C. Celexa, D. Both A and B, or E. All of the above? And the answer is D. Both A and B. Both Escalith and Lithobid are brand names for lithium, which is a mood stabilizer used in bipolar disorder. Celexa is a brand name for citalopram, which is an SSRI antidepressant. Number 195. The brand name of dicyclamine is A. Antivert, B. Benadryl, C. Pepsid, or D. Bentyl? And the answer is D. The brand name of dicyclamine is Bentyl, and that's a medication used for irritable bowel syndrome and cramping. Antivert is the brand name for meclizine, which is an antihistamine used for dizziness and motion sickness. Benadryl is a brand name for diphenhydramine, which is an antihistamine used in allergies. Pepsid is a brand name for famotidine, which is an H2 blocker used for heartburn. Number 196. Mirapex is a medication for A. Restless leg syndrome, B. Parkinson's disease, C. Constipation, or D. Both A and B? And the answer is D. Mirapex is used for both restless leg syndrome and Parkinson's disease. Its generic name is pramipexole. It's a dopamine agonist. Number 197. What is the generic name of Bistolic? A. Propranolol, B. Metoprolol, C. Atenolol, or D. Nebivolol? And the answer is D. Nebivolol is the generic name for Bistolic. Propranolol is the generic name for Inderol. Metoprolol is the generic name for Lopressor or Toprol-XL. Atenolol is the generic name for Tenormin. And these are all beta blockers used for high blood pressure and irregular heartbeat. They have the LOL suffix ending. Number 198. True or false? Hytrin is an alpha blocker for enlarged prostate symptoms and hair loss. A. True, or B. False? And the answer is B. False. Hytrin is an alpha blocker and is used for enlarged prostate symptoms and high blood pressure, not hair loss. Hytrin's generic name is Trazodone. It ends with the osin suffix, O-S-I-N, and that is characteristic of the alpha blockers. So it's for enlarged prostate and high blood pressure. The medication that's for enlarged prostate and hair loss is finasteride, or the brand names are Propecia and Proscar, and it's a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. Number 199. MgO is the chemical formula for which supplement? A. Potassium chloride, B. Magnesium oxide, C. Ferrous sulfate, or D. Sodium chloride. And the answer is B. Magnesium oxide. MgO is the chemical formula for magnesium oxide, and that is a magnesium supplement. Its brand name is Magox. Potassium chloride chemical formula is KCl. That's a potassium supplement. Ferrous sulfate's chemical formula is FeSO4, and that's an iron supplement. And sodium chloride's chemical formula is NaCl, and that's used in electrolyte imbalances and in IVs. Number 200. Colchris is a brand name of A. Allopurinol, B. Colchicine, C. Oxybutynin, or D. Alendronate. And the answer is B. Colchicine. Colchris is a brand name of colchicine, which is a tubulin disruptor used for gout. Allopurinol is the generic name for Xyloprim, which is a xanthine oxidase inhibitor used for gout. Oxybutynin is the generic name for Ditropan, which is a medication for overactive bladder. And alendronate is the generic name for Fosamax, which is a bisphosphonate for osteoporosis. Thanks for watching. Please like and share this video with others who may find it helpful, and please subscribe to see more of my drug information videos. Thank you.